So if you're a new pilot cross-country, a very important thing is to be confident with your equipment and not to think that you need a better glider to go cross-country, because you don't. An LTF1 glider is fine to go cross-country. It's much more important to fly a glider at 100% rather than another glider, perhaps at a higher grade at 60%. So it's not a problem to have a grade 1 glider to go cross-country. More importantly, it's better to have that you're confident in your equipment, that you know your equipment, and that you're not worried about anything about the glider. So that's one of the most important things. Yeah, normally if I'm flying downwind, I don't use the speed bar very often, unless I hit very strong sink, and then I will use the speed bar. But if I'm flying on the ridge and I'm trying to do a little out and return or a triangle, then into wind, then I'm using the speed bar a lot, yeah, to get into wind. Sometimes I'm using, most of the time it's probably about half the speed bar. And occasionally if the sink's really bad, then I'll use full speed bar. But I'm flying an LTF 2-3 glider now, so it's quite important you use the speed bar correctly. But I think on like an LTF 1 wing it's not as important, because the speed bar doesn't have as much, there's not such a difference, you know. So on less performant gliders it's not as important as it is on more performant gliders. One of the most important things about cross-country flying is knowing when to go fast and knowing when to slow down. So it's looking ahead at the conditions, and if the conditions don't look very good, or let's say there's a blue hole ahead, then you must slow down. You must get as high as you can to cross the blue hole or the gap or whatever. So sometimes you can go quick when the clouds look good, you're at cloud base, there's a nice street, you can fly as fast as you can, and then other times you need to slow down and you need to be really patient. And sometimes you need to just stay in the air, because if the conditions deteriorate, then it's all about staying in the air the longest. If you can stay in the air the longest, sometimes you can, more often than not, you can go further. Because if the conditions then get better, then you're the only one that's left in the air. So it's really important knowing when to slow down and when to speed up. Yeah, sometimes if I get low and I'm getting a little bit despondent, then I don't like to give up, you know, so I will always try and stay in the lift. If it's a rough thermal low down, I'll try and stay in it. And then if I'm thinking about if I stay in it and I climb back up, then I'll reward myself by perhaps having a little nibble to eat on some chocolate or maybe a little drink. So in the back of my mind I'm thinking, okay, if I do this and I'm successful, then the reward is some chocolate or some, you know, some sort of food or drink. And I find that that works quite well. But it's important not to give up, you know, to be very patient and to have a lot of determination, and that way. If I get stuck on a ridge and I'm just ridge soaring, waiting for a thermal, then it's a good time to relax a little bit, because you know you're not going to go down, you're not going to land, so you can relax, you can maybe have something to eat or drink. If there's pilots flying above your head, it's important to do your own flight, not to think that they're flying above your head, and don't get despondent. You need to fly your own flight and make your own decisions. Don't think there's pilots getting ahead of me, because then, you know, you'll think negative and go and land, or you might decide to go over the back of the hill too low. So just be patient, and eventually, normally the thermal will come and carry you back up to cloud base. So when I'm flying cross country on the speed bar, Normally, obviously I've got no brakes on, but I'm just holding the back risers, feeling for the pressure. So if it's quite turbulent and the pressure starts to go, then I come off the speed bar. So I find it quite useful, just holding the back risers very, very slightly, and then at least I've got some contact with the glider, and I can come off the speed bar quick if I lose the pressure, and then straight onto the brakes. Well, I use quite a standard thermaling technique, in that if I'm quite high, I'll fly and I hit lift, I'll keep flying straight, and I'll be trying to feel which way the lift's pushing me, and I'll let it push me. So if it's pushing me to the right, I'll let it push me to the right, and then just as the lift starts to drop off, then I start turning to the left. And then that way I can then thermal in the center very quickly. Once I'm in the thermal, I'm never satisfied with the lift, with the thermal. I'm always thinking it's better somewhere else. So I'm always searching in the thermal, because sometimes, quite often, you get little, almost like little thermals within the bigger thermal, and you can tighten up in those little shots of lift. So you can turn very tight in the stronger cores of the thermal, and then normally sometimes you can get past other pilots. I'm never satisfied with the lift. I'm always looking for better lift.
Into the lift.
Yeah. For me, it's important to try and stay quite fit, because if you're flying cross country, then it takes a lot out of your body physically and mentally. So if you can be fit, then that always helps you. I feel better and I feel like I'm going to last longer. So carry water and food with you, because if you're flying for such a long time, like 8 hours, then you certainly need to drink well. You need to keep rehydrated, because if you get dehydrated, then you start making bad decisions, and I start to get headache quite easy if I don't drink. And also some food as well, just to keep your blood sugar levels up. So I hope some of the points that I've made help you in your flying, and enable you to fly longer distances.